The number is 646-257-3920. Mike from Texas. I'm sorry, Emma. Did I hear it right? Did you say during your second interview that there's nothing inherently anti-woman or anti-LGBTQ about Gaza? What? You can protest Israel's genocide without making these uninformed statements. Yes, there are a few dozen Christians in Gaza, but Gazan society is a derivative of Islamic culture, which definitely is inherently anti-woman and anti-LGBTQ, as are other ancient religions. That's not to say every Gazan wants to enslave women and kill gays, but the fact that those attitudes are inherent in there and other Islamic societies or societies run by Islamic law is just an irrefutable fact. Anyways, love you all. Left is best. Mike, appreciate the sentiment. I would never say that because a country, because Hamas is an Islamic or right wing as opposed to a secular organization, that makes Gaza inherently anti-woman or LGBTQ. I take the lead from LGBTQ rights groups from within Palestinian society, whether that be Queers for Palestine, you know, that's more internationalist, but like literally when people talk about their experiences, and I don't think that's the cue that I take from that. I do not think that it's uninformed at all, to be honest.
For Israel and Apartheid South Africa, a collection of essays by Ilan Pappy. I recommend that. It goes into lots of the pressures that Gazan women are. I think the rape thing is a hysterical Zionist smear thing, but it's true that things aren't great for a woman, standard woman in Gaza, the mean average, and that's not because of Islam. It's because of the occupation that they are under.
Also,
there's a number of non-Islamic majority countries that are well known for having problems with how women are treated. India, for example. What does Islam have to do with that?
Exactly. And I also will say that you quoted me correctly. Nothing inherently anti-woman or LGBTQ about Gaza. Yeah, that's 100% accurate. Inherently. That's what I said. Look up the word.
Also, the United States of America cracking down on women's choice. We're not an Islamic nation. I mean, we're talking now about the possibility of an incoming Republican administration monitoring women's pregnancies to make sure they don't get abortions. I mean, what are we talking about here? Is this religious? I mean, it is to some extent in terms of Christianity. I don't know what Islam has to do with America's infatuation with subjugating women to this sort of thing.
But people who are sort of victims of a long genocide process, which is what Palestinians are, preceding October 7th, there are pressures on women for fertility that aren't very nice to think about. And the blame for that lies on not their fucking religion, but the colonial context that they are being oppressed under. And again, this sort of dodge to ID, this is why I hate, and I was the new atheist, I had a Richard Dawkins Out Atheist t-shirt. That whole shift to this idealistic religious thing is it's a dodge for the actual structural issues that are setting the terms in that region.
If you want to have a broader discussion about religion causing problems, I think that's fair, but I think the idea that any religion is sort of unique in its own sense in terms of the harm it puts out for the world, for the societies that it encapsulates, I think that doesn't do any real good, because I don't think it's any different in that sense.
If you start there for Gazans, I'm sorry, you're a bigot. It's stupid. It's completely secondary and trivial compared to the actual brutal context that they're under.
Also, in terms of like what Gazans are subjugated to, they're like in terms of like how people can dress there and things, they're in no way as strict as other countries in the region. Like if you were to visit, for example, Saudi Arabia, you would probably need to dress very differently. If you were to go to Gaza, prior to everything that's been happening since Israel destroyed it, but if you go to Gaza prior to the past 8 months, you wouldn't have to be like head to toe head covering visiting. The dress code, there's a number of things that are quite different that people, and you see this a lot with people who want to smear Palestinians, just like equating them to like other countries where like it's all racist, obviously, and Islamophobic, but they wrongly try to claim that like, you know, if we could see, if a woman goes there and we could see more than your eyes, then you're in trouble. No, that's not the case there. It never has been.
Right.
Also, I mean, I know everyone wants to jump in here, but just to
No.
share my thoughts quickly, it's just part of a shifting colonial trope. Like the barbarism, the sense that brown people are barbaric is the same. Just people have shifted for explaining why. And before, it's because they weren't Christian or because they weren't religious, they were polytheistic. And now it's because they are too religious. You see this in Africa, you see this in parts of the Middle East as well. And it's the same narrative you heard going into Kuwait. Like we have to save brown women and brown LGBTQ people from like devious brown men who are seeking only to oppress them. When uplifting the Gazan people or across the board is going to be the easiest way to ensure like women's liberation over there. As we've seen, like the rising tide of, economic and socioeconomic conditions in countries tends to correlate with women's liberation and at least the expanded roles for women. In Gaza has to exist, like Matt was saying, there's only so many roles for women because they're under a brutal religious oppression, not by specifically Muslims, but by Israel, being supported by a theoretically secular country, the United States of America, that has its own barbaric practices that are implemented piecemeal around this country by religious fundamentalists. Right. But, people like Richard Dawkins, people like Sam Harris don't like to consider the American barbarism that we inflict on American citizens, not just citizens abroad, as being part of the same kind of, inherently barbaric trait because it doesn't always gesture to religion.
CBS News, February 19th, 2020, how Jewish American pedophiles hide from justice in Israel. Interesting story there. That is, again, CBS News. It's not some far left outfit. It's probably an outlet that's accused protesters of being anti-Semitic, but Jewish Community Watch, an American organization that tracks accused pedophiles, has been trying for years to find Caro and help bring him justice. This is one of the pedophiles. Since the organization started tracking accused pedophiles in 2014, it says more than 60 have fled from the U.S. to Israel. Given its limited resources to identify these individuals, JCW says the actual number is much likely larger. Now, this is not the thing that I think is the most important to emphasize about the state of Israel, but if we're going to start slinging mud about people being rapists, we're going to bring in all this stuff.
Well, I mean, it's in part because they will take anybody to increase the demographic majority of Israel, right? So they have much, like, for example, the provinces within Israel don't recognize same-sex marriage, but if you are a gay person, you can immigrate and then have your marriage recognized when you go to Israel. And that's another major myth about that we just actually talked about with our second guest, the pink washing that Israel engages in.
But what, people, defenders of Israel will say, and they think this is exculpatory, is that that's because Israel as a state does not perform marriages themselves, because as a religious ethno state, they leave it up to the rabbinate. Mm-hmm. And so like, it's a way for them to kind of have their cake and eat it too. Like, well, yeah, like our religion won't allow us to marry you if you're same sex. And the state doesn't perform religion because it's a religious state. But if you happen to get a marriage somewhere else, then you can come here and we will, tolerate that marriage.
Totally.
But just to Matt's point, it's not just, sex offenders. It's just criminals of all type that will seek shelter in Israel because of this non-extradition treaty. There's like a famous crypto scammer who is, I think, associated with the Netanyahu family, who is hiding in Israel at this exact moment. It's just a type of safe haven that they provide, and it doesn't really necessarily matter if you are trying to seek recompense for it. They will protect them. That was even part of the the Tinder swindler documentary, where he happened to be in Israel. So there wasn't something these women can really do. And then he was brought up on separate charges of scams that he was committing in Israel.
Well, how about the fact that Israel is one of the top diamond exporters in the world, even though diamonds are not produced in Israel? It's in part because they launder their illegal mining of diamonds through Israel. And I mean, the more you learn about Israel, the more insane it becomes. But yeah, I know that's a bit of a tangent.
That's what happens when you have carte blanche as an American vassal state.
Totally.
You get to do because that's really what allows for this. It's not any sort of specific favor towards any religion that America necessarily has besides Christianity. It's that Israel is a military industrial complex outpost in the Middle East, and that means that for certain things they get carte blanche.
Glad to see you back, Binder. We'll read a few more items.
How's it sound? better?
So Absoluteless says, me and you, Binder, are dying on the hill of doubting victims were raped. What I have, again, an infinite amount of time for is to say that rape is being used as a propaganda object for an ethnic cleansing. Are you there, Binder? You with us?
Yeah. I didn't hear what you said, though.
But so like we got somebody in the comments, which I want to address, Absoluteless, said we are dying on the hill of not believing rape victims. And what they said is we deny that the victims of October 7th got raped. What I deny about October 7th was what the Sheryl Sandberg sort of idea that this was a systemic rape campaign. I've never doubted that incidents of rape and also like incidents of civilian killing that we can condemn happened on October 7th. I've never doubted that at all. But I will say, and I will continue to say, as the most important thing to emphasize about sexual violence on October 7th, that it is being used as a propaganda object to do an ethnic cleansing right now. And it is being lied about and exaggerated to a point where it is a policy by Hamas, and not just maybe what happens when you have an extremely undisciplined, oppressed people that actually aren't even allowed to have a military try to do resistance. Yeah, when you know what, that's what happens. It's going to get ugly. This is the reality, and this is not just Israel. This is every colonial context where a colony has fallen. So like,
and they're always portrayed as rapists, the colonized. I mean, go on.
There's not been a single instance of a Israeli October 7th rape victim coming out and saying they were raped that I denied, because there hasn't been a single person who's come out and said that.
Yeah.
There's a single, and even in the face of that, I don't deny the possibility that it happened.
Exactly.
On top of that, though, there is a single person who has come out, and it's horrible that this happened to her, but there is a single person who's come out with a firsthand account that she was assaulted in the home of an individual she was forced to stay with in Gaza. In her retelling, he had to hide this activity, which doesn't make it seem like it's systemic, that he had to hide it. Seems to indicate the opposite. You're right, because it wouldn't be approved. Again, even then, who knows? So I'm not denying, but I'm going based on facts. Secondly, the secondhand accounts we have are from people who've lied, people who have said things that were later refuted by people who actually were at these kibbutzes that were attacked, saying this did not happen. This individual, an individual matching this description, does not even live here. Is not here at all. Individuals who've already lied about 40 babies being beheaded, confirmed lie. Individuals lying about a baby being burned alive in an oven, confirmed lie. So yes, we do refute known disinformation when the facts become available to us. And even in light of all that, we don't discount the fact that because of how things are in acts of terror and in war, the possibility that rape was used as a horrible weapon could have been. Yep. We are saying that there is no proof that this was systemic and used as a Hamas campaign.
Yes. And by the way,
like
50 journalism professors agree. They just wrote a letter to the New York Times to reevaluate their reporting on this. We could go on and on.
I just want to plug. I did an interview with Heidi Matthews and Tanya Cerisier. Bombing Gaza isn't about sexual violence. We posted that 13 days ago. I would just recommend that. And I appreciate people calling us out on that, because there's no light without heat, but this is something that needs actually clearly an extended amount of elaboration. I appreciate Binder going through it like that, because this is a despicable use of sexual violence for mileage in an ethnic cleansing.
Yep.
And that's the most important thing that needs to be said about it right now.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.